All right, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate everybody kind of jumping on, and I'm honored to be able to be asked to do something on behalf of Gulf States and this particular topic around associates and interns and how you can help them move along, make acceptable progress, and ultimately become PGA members. I think that today I really want to get into some of the intricacies of the education program, both PGA, PGM 3.0, and 3.1, and really be able to answer any questions and hopefully shed some light on some of those things. So you golf professionals are aware of how things have changed and how things are currently done, and the PGA's philosophy and stance on a lot of this. So I know we've got some people from probably all across our district. So I'll quickly just really quick about me. I'm the director of the PGA Golf Management Program and the MSU Golf Course. So I always kid around with people and I say I have two jobs and one salary. I wouldn't suggest that for any of my students or anybody that I ever get to be around. But anyway, I've got the district pretty well covered. I grew up right there in Coleman, Alabama. So I grew up playing in a lot of the Alabama, Northwest Florida stuff when I was a junior golfer. And my wife's from Tennessee. We live in Mississippi, and we got engaged down in Destin. So we kind of got the whole district sort of covered all the way across these states. But I graduated from Mississippi State in 2007 and started working for the program then. So I've been in education with in some form or fashion for this has been my 16th year. I've got 2 degrees from Mississippi State, and that's our home there, McCool Hall, the College of Business here on campus. And my career started there, and then this was the view out of my office in Colorado for about 2 years. Trust me, it's beautiful, but it's freezing cold. It was a good little 2-year stop as I ran that program at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. But everything came back here to Mississippi State, and I took over as director right before the pandemic hit in early 2020. So let's get into this topic of how can you assist your associates and interns. There's a lot of times I feel like I hear from associates, assistants, and even golf professionals trying to figure out, how do I help? I don't understand this. I don't understand what's required. How much has it changed? It's different than when I was in the program. So we're trying to always figure out how we can make sure that the PGA member is educated, because quite frankly, I don't believe we've done a very good job of making sure that our established members can understand how things kind of change and what the requirements are on these young assistants and interns. So pretty quickly, let's go over the 3.0 program. So the PGA has morphed from the 90s, where it was business school, and then it started with GPTP, which eventually got renamed PGA PGM 1.0. And that went until 2009. We put 2.0 out in 2010 and then rolled out a new education program in 2018. I think that things now, if you tried to change the things back in the 90s or the early 2000s, everything was in print and physical hard copies. So a lot of us in here that did the old 1.0 program can remember the boxes upon boxes of VHSs and eventually the new CDs we got at that time, and had all of our information physically that way. It was difficult to update that information at any kind of speed. When I was a freshman, we were learning club repair, and we were still discussing how to whip a persimmon ferrule and a persimmon wood. And how to install a hosel pin. Well, now the PGA of America, for the fact that everything is digital, everything's online, and everything has kind of morphed into what we online platform called Canvas that a lot of institutions use. The PGA has a lot quicker opportunity to update things and to put more relevant data in there that as it operates in real time. So the 3.0 program rolled out in 2018, and we really just had our first cohort graduate from the university, and there's been many of associates go through this program. But there's still a lot of people in the 3.0 program, but there is a new program that just began in January as well. But quickly, let's hit 3.0. So kind of what is it? Well, it's 4 levels. It's a qualifying level, and then level 1, 2, 3. So there's your 4 levels. Throughout the process, there's 7 total exams. In the exams, there's a qualifying level exam, and then across each of the levels, there's exams all in between there as well. at the end of every level. Portfolio activities. There's approximately 150 portfolio activities across all these topics, and the student and the associate route right now, it differs because an associate has an opportunity to choose a career track. The students do not have a choice to pick one of those. So the three career tracks right now for the associates are golf operations, teaching and coaching, and executive management. They get to choose those after they get done with level one. So it impacts their level two and their level three. Our students that go through our program and the other 17 institutions, they all go the golf operations route. So within 3.0, what's interesting about a lot of this is the testing is pretty difficult, but the students and associates are provided a question bank. Some are answered, some are not, but the students are encouraged to go in and study as much as possible to get ready for these exams. Passing score on these exams is 70%. It's all computer-based testing. They set it up through through the PGA's. They partnered with a company called Examity, and an associate or a student schedules that exam and then takes it. For us, it's always a final exam, so it's the end of the semester. For an associate, it would be whenever they're ready to take the exam. Make no bones about it, these exams, even though they give the questions, can be pretty difficult, and they require adequate preparation. Maria and I had a conversation recently where she was sharing with me an associate was struggling with an exam, and I basically said that look, they get the questions. It just takes a ton of preparation, and just the questions themselves are not going to get you past the exam. There's no substitute for actually getting in there and reading the material, because the PGA is not scared to pull a question from a pretty obscure place, and it can be challenging. So the exams all happen. For an associate, they can get done with this program as quickly as they would like. I've seen people get it done as early as 18 months through all four levels. So it all depends on at what speed they want to get everything done by. So that's the 3.0 program. Now, well, let me get into portfolio activities for 3.1. So portfolio activities are what we used to call, our old work experience kits, is what we used to call them. And the portfolio activities, the way the PGA of America looks at them is this is a student or associate's opportunity to display competency in all of these subjects. And there's a lot of different subject matter, and there's a lot of requirements: photos, videos, sitting down with interviews. A ton of information has to be provided in order for a student or associate to show that they are competent in these areas. The PGA of America has an education team that is assigned to grading these things and approving them, and they look for thorough answers. They're looking for proper grammar and terminology. They will mark cart every time and say, it's golf car, not cart, and simply following the directions. So portfolio activities are going to continue with 3.1, and I'll talk about them more in a moment. But a couple of key points about these portfolio activities. The PGA has really tightened on their requirements here. I'm going to try to explain this in a way that it was explained to me one time at a meeting last year. The passing, the rubric that they use to grade these portfolio activities can be difficult to kind of understand. They basically say it's a 70% rubric, but if a student or an associate is missing something substantial, let's say in their teaching activities, they're missing 2 video submissions that they have to upload through YouTube. If they have a video missing or 2 videos missing, the whole work experience kit will be returned to them, and they won't get to send it back in for another 30 days. So they will fail it. Now, academically speaking, that sounds like, well, why would they completely fail something for 1 or 2 things being wrong? PGA of America's feeling on it is that it's incomplete, therefore it's not submissible. For the associates, it's difficult because they don't have anybody going back and double checking their work. The PGA of America expects us as staff at all the universities to grade these with a fine-tooth comb before we send them in. So if a student is not ready to be submitted, I won't submit their name because I know that it'll probably fail based on the submissions that they put in. A couple other things with this, for those of you that are talking to your associates or your interns about their portfolio activities. I say this all the time in class, and I think it's going to be tongue in cheek, but hear me out. The PGA of America has never listed that somebody put too much thought or substance into an answer. So I require our students for every answer You need to provide me 5 to 6 sentences of thorough thought in an effort to show that you understand the topic. Again, the PJ's never called me and said, Adam, Brandon over here just put too many words here. Like, he just understands it too well. So I think what I see a lot of times when these things get returned, it's they're not giving enough thought. They're giving one sentence answers. Their grammar's really bad, and they just haven't followed the directions properly. So I encourage all of you that are potentially helping out someone as they're doing this work, is be as thorough as you possibly can, because the more you can show that you understand the topic, the better chance that you're going to have that it will be passed. Now, how does it work? Well, once you send it in, the PGA of America has 30 days to grade it and get it back to you. So if you send it in January 5th, on about February 5th, you're going to hear whether or not your portfolio activities have been passed. And then you either moving on to the next level or testing, something like that. If it fails, then you can't submit it again for 30 days, and then it's going to take them another 30 days to grade it. So it's always a 90-day window. I have to tell the students and say, listen, if we send it February 5th and it fails on March 5th, you can't send it in until April 5th, and then you won't hear back until May 5th. So it really stretches out. And that's why I stress to our students and every associate I speak to is do as a thorough job as you possibly can, because the PGA of America is expecting this to be the proof of you understanding the topics to be a PGA member. Now, the 3.0 program that just started January 1st, 2023, we actually did not start this program at Mississippi State. We're going to start it in August. It's a little cleaner for us to start with a new incoming class, but it changes in some philosophy of how we want to test and does something a little different. So it still has the same 4 levels, with Q level all the way through level 3. And now, instead of testing that happens in a big, massive end of level test, there are quizzes that go through the PGA of America's Canvas. There's no large end of level exams. So it's kind of like those of you that have gone through like HR training and things like that. It's those type quizzes where they go along a subject matter, and then you're to go sit through a module, study the information, and then take these quizzes as you kind of get to the end of lessons and courses. Now, there still is a big exam at the qualifying level that will still always exist, but now they're putting in a massive comprehensive test at the conclusion of this program. I'm hearing that 70% is what the passing rate is going to be, and this is going to be a complete, I don't know if their goal here was kind of like a bar exam type thing. I don't know if that's exactly what they were after with this, but we obviously won't have this test until we'll have it in the fall of 2027 is the first time we'll actually test this. So Lord willing, I'll still be here getting to see that come to fruition. There's some people that are concerned because it'll be a big exam right there at the end, and it's going to count all of the quizzes and the things that go through Canvas are going to be included as part of that comprehensive exam. And that goes all the way back level 1 through level 3. So I've told everybody that I've asked the PGA this at the show this year, that those associates and students need to have access to those old quizzes when it comes to that time so they can study properly. Now, what the PGA is going to do in lieu of the testing is they're putting a greater emphasis on the portfolio activities, whether that is with more content, with probably some stricter guidelines, and some probably a little bit more difficult grading. So what we're seeing is they're sending back a lot of portfolios, and they really want to kind of make it a point that these things actually prove that you know what you're doing as a young assistant or young associate. So I'm gonna go back to that. So at this point, like when it really comes down to it, an associate or a student intern, it's 100% on them to understand what they are to do and what they need. I don't believe, in my opinion, it is on any of you that have young associates or young students with you to be on top of them every day to see if they're doing their work. I really believe it's their responsibility. However, when a student or an associate comes to you with a question, or I need to interview you for this, or I need access to our merchandising to set up an open to buy plan in here, or that's where I think you come in and have the ability to actually help them and provide them the information they need. But if they haven't read the directions, they don't even know what to ask you, and you certainly don't know what to provide to them. So it's up to the associate or the student to always make sure that they understand exactly what is required out of all of these activities, so then they can come get the information that they need from you and take the photos they need and take the videos they need. And in rare cases, if you really wanted to look over their shoulder and grade it, I think that'd be okay. And you can kind of spot check some of their work to see if it's submissible. But I don't necessarily know if that's 100% required, because we're all pressed for time. And I can tell you, whenever we have 20 or 30 students to grade, I mean, it's 2 weeks worth of only doing that. It's the only thing that I do for those time frames, so it can be difficult. But as it relates to what are some other ways that we kind of motivate students to come across and get this finished. I had a conversation with Matt Williamson one time, and he was telling me about in the TPC network, they had quite a few associates, and not many were progressing along, because the PGA of America does have an expectation that you make acceptable progress and you move through this program pretty quickly. And we just talked sort of theories and things, and I truly believe there's some employers who do this, that they tie compensation along with an associate or a PGA member. And I really think that's the biggest thing, if you ask me, as far as a motivator. It's like, look, you're going to make X amount of more dollars if you're a PGA member versus not. Now, the challenge we're having there is we're all strapped for time and people, and we're willing to pay anybody whatever to get a body in the door. But I think you would be well within your the understanding of this program to do everything you can to provide some kind of a motivation to finish this program properly, to become a PGA member, to get to participate in section events and whatever that may be. But I'm a big quote guy, and I always kind of share this one with the students, because I think inward on a lot of this stuff. Whenever we have things that don't go right, I always wonder, me as a leader, what have I done or not done that has hurt this? So I'm a big John Wooden fan, and Mr. Wooden, reading some poetry during a TED talk, late in his life, he says, no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves. So, I mean, what does that say to you? I mean, to me, it says that our associates and our students are looking to us as the example for how we are to act as a PGA member and to serve in that mentor role. So I believe that there's a big onus on all of us as we look at this, the storm that we're in the middle of right now, where membership, our aging membership will be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. We need to make sure that we grow the next generation of PGA member, and there's so many successful golf professionals on this call right now that I believe that we have got to speak positively about our industry and help them along in this education process where we can. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and answer any questions I got at that point. I know we kind of went through that relatively quickly, but that's essentially the tip of the iceberg on a lot of this stuff as it relates to the education program, where it's going. And we have some say in it when it comes to they start changing things, but when it really comes down to it, it's up to us to unveil this and push it through the way that we need to. So it's challenging on my end, because I got to go to curriculum committees and all kinds of stuff like that. But when it comes to an associate program, it's just where they start, and kind of where they finish. So anyway, questions for me?
I'm confused about the paths, and when I say confused about them, that's not the right word. I know absolutely nothing about them and how that works, and explain to me how, if they go on these different paths. It used to be if you hired a PGA professional, exactly what they've been trained in. Mm-hmm. So explain to me the paths, the purpose of the paths, and everything you can, if you would, please.
Yeah, so I have no problem saying first that when the career path thing was presented, I was not necessarily for it, to be honest with you. And the reason why is because I agree with what you just said, JT. I felt that PGA members all needed a base level of understanding upon the completion of their education. That was my opinion on it. The PGA of America stance, and I think it was Chris Kane from UNLV who was a really, really kind of big with this. And I agree with his rationale, because they were having young associates get into the, at that time, apprentices that were getting into the program and going, I am a junior golf instructor at XYZ golf course. Why do I need to do all of this golf operation stuff when I'm never going to do this? Right? That was their logic. So that's where the career track thing came into play, where an associate gets done with Q level and level 1, and then they can choose from there golf operations, which is the general, that's what we teach. Teaching and coaching, or executive management. So the executive management track is exactly what you'd think. That's an individual looking to get corporate golf, general manager, that type of thing. Teaching and coaching, self-explanatory, and golf ops is what we all understand, is what everybody does. So level 2 and level 3 of the education program are specifically catered towards those subjects. So Erica, my wife, she went the teaching and coaching route. Her bulk of her portfolio activities were all teaching related and all coaching related. And then the same thing for her level 3 and her testing as well. So it really helps them narrow in and kind of, determine their niche, I guess. But I also kind of have the feeling that they may be missing out on some specific subject matter if they are to take a job where some things are going to be required, because imagine a young associate gets into it, does the teaching and coaching route, and then takes an assistant job, and then they're behind the counter. They've never booked a tee time. It's like, so I see why the PGA has it in place. I don't necessarily disagree with it anymore, but I do think that more and more people, I would imagine it. I don't know, Doug or Kevin may know this. I don't know in the associate route the split between golf ops and teaching and coaching. I don't know how many of the associates do executive management, but I would imagine the bulk of them go into golf ops or teaching and coaching. That'd be my thought. Kevin, do you have any idea about that?
Well, he's trying to get off mute. I'll just say that, like, for me, I'm thinking about Ashley, one of our assistants in level 1, great teacher. And she's talking, she's probably gonna go the teaching and coaching route, but she would be an excellent head pro. And I don't know how she could apply. So I guess, would the answer be, do you feel like if they just get certified in golf operations, that would fill that void?
That probably could. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, as they go through specialized and certification. Yeah, I think you're right there. But another thing to this, JT, is that in the golf ops, there is a teaching and coaching component to it as well. So it's not like it's completely void of teaching and coaching if you pick the golf ops route, because we teach teaching and coaching and facility management through the whole program. So there's still some teaching components to golf ops. And I think I would steer any young associate who, even if they do have aspirations to teach a ton, I would still make sure that they had to went the golf ops route, just to make sure that they were, in a sense, a more well-rounded golf professional. But you're right. I guess in lieu of, if they said, no, I really want to go teaching and coaching, then the way I would say is like, so if you ever want to transition from an instructor to an A1, then I would tell you, go to the specialization program, because there are some overlap. There are some subjects that are covered in the specialized and certified program that are in some of the base level knowledge from the associate golf ops route. That's a good question, though.
Hey, Adam, so you're saying that your students, they do golf operations, they don't have an option, they don't have a...
Correct. Yeah. Unfortunately for us, it would be very difficult for us. We only have 7 PGM classes that we teach, and it's qualifying level, and then teaching and coaching 1, 2, 3, and facility management 1, 2, 3. We don't have the manpower, the resources, the faculty to be able to offer all of the career tracks like we would have to based on the curriculum. So that's an unfortunate kind of process for us. The PGA would allow us to, if we had the amount of staff and resources to do it, but it would be, it's just something we're not able to kind of go under right now. I would love to be able to, but I think there's an important part of something I left out, Maria. I'm glad you asked that question, because you made me think about it. In 3.0, the program of the university and the associate program were not aligned, meaning an associate couldn't enroll in the program at a university level, if they had started and pick up exactly where they left off, and a student couldn't go to 3.0 if they dropped out. Because ultimately, sometimes I get a transfer student who might be a non-traditional, they're in their early 20s, an ex-military, and they may go to an internship and go, I'm just going to stay here and keep working for JT. It's like, well, you're in level 2. Well, now you're going to have to start over back to Q level because these programs don't align. Now in 3.1, they align. So now we're at a spot where both of these programs are pretty fluid. So you have situations now where an associate, some of you may have a young person nearby you at a community college that is going to do 2 years of community college. They can do Q level and level 1 right now in the 3.1 program through the affiliate program, or they can do it the associate program, and they don't have to be working in golf. So now by the time they're done and get their associate's degree from that 2-year institution, they can come to our school. They can do 2 to 2.5 years and then get done a little quicker, where before it was always 4.5. Or they can come right in and working for you, and they're already in level 2. They can bang out 2 and 3 pretty quick, and then they're a PGA member once their work requirement is done as well. So it's a lot more fluid now. I'm looking forward to being able to have people come in and complete 2 years, 2.5 years with us, because before the PGA it was always a no. It was, this program's 4.5 years no matter how you shake it. And now with 3.1, it's aligned. And I was on the National PGA University Committee with some other individuals, and we kind of set that up last year and got that going the right direction. So I'm glad that we have some fluidity in and out of our programs now.
Perfect. So question there would be, no, let me get away from the echo. So if we get an intern, if we're fortunate enough to have interns from Mississippi State, their focus would be golf operations. So we would of course want them to be well-rounded, where if we went to another school, they may have the 3 tracks. So we could, if we wanted to bring in a teaching and coaching intern,
Possibly.
or we wanted to bring in an executive management intern.
I don't know how many of the schools are trying to do both. I think Methodist had the staff to do it, and they were discussing it. But I actually don't know at this moment, Marie, of any of them that are actually trying to provide the career tracks.
All right. That makes sense. Well, I think I'm with JT on, I don't understand why we don't let them choose at the end, because you're going to have a lot of young guys get into this program and see what they would say benefit is to being a teacher, and get into it and absolutely say, this wasn't for me. I just spent, 3 years learning, teaching, and coaching, and I know nothing about being a head professional, and I really want to be a head professional.
Yeah, and maybe the logic from PGA is just like what JT's already mentioned. It was the go the specialized route at that point, to learn that as quickly as possible to kind of get in and start doing some of that stuff. So maybe that's the logic on that. But I agree with you. I have always kind of had the feeling that golf professionals needed to be relatively well-rounded and versed in a lot of different topics, whether or not they were going to pursue something in something very specific anyway. But that was just my opinion on it. It's not like I was standing up in front of a room, blowing up the career track thing. That was my opinion on it from what I have seen and done.
Kind of to my point, what I was saying is there's always been some assumptions to the badge, right? If you got the badge, we're assuming certain things. So are there going to be different logos for each track as well?
At the moment, I don't believe so. And you, Doug and Kevin, y'all sat front to some of these logo discussions that happened over the last couple of years, and those are internally, those have not been fun when it comes to the stars being removed and the member professional versus. So there is a specialized logo, there is a certified logo, but I don't believe there is. I think everything else is just member. It doesn't have a career track attached to it, because those are just going to be PGA associate or PGA student, and there's not going to be anything extra along with that. But that you do bring up an interesting point. I would have never thought about that, because at least that would say if you had an associate you were looking to hire, other than just asking them, maybe the logo would kind of show that.
I got another question.
Okay.
So we have 2 associates that just started the program. They're still, I guess they just now are entering into level 1. Are they able to move into 3.1 instead of 3.0? Would you see that happening?
Yeah, the PGA of America has opened up that opportunity. They actually gave us an option to put some of our freshmen in 3.0 this spring. So I believe in a conversation with Kyle or Todd Salmons, any associate who has completed at least the Q level, because that's not going to change. They could probably backtrack and pull into 3.1 if they so desired to. PJ is getting a lot more flexible when it comes to that.
So they need to call headquarters and do that, or is that something that they do from their portal?
Yeah, I doubt you can do it from the portal, because they probably have to put you in a completely different setup there internally. So that would, like I said, I think either through Kyle or Todd would probably be the one I would have them reach out to find out, how that process would work and what they would need on there in order to transition over to that program.
Perfect. And so another question. We have interns or associates. If we have an intern, of course, I call you. With our associates, who are our kind of helplines? Who do we call when we have a question with their bookwork, or if they have a question with their bookwork? Is there somebody direct that we can have as a resource?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we actually just got some confirmation on this at the PGA show. I believe Todd Salmons is the ultimate supervisor over the group of portfolio graders. What the PGA of America has requested is that we don't go straight to like one of the we have 2 or 3 assigned to us. We have Carol Rhodes, Eric Hogue, and one other that's assigned to Mississippi State. So they grade all of our students. Some of the others are other schools or other PGA of America education individuals, but they don't want us reaching out directly to that grader. Now, sometimes that grader will reach out directly to one of our students, and they'll just say, "Hey, can you fix this link? It's not working." And a student can go in and fix it really fast. But I believe that through a conversation with Kyle Helms just recently, and by the direction of Dawes Marlett, Dawes asked that all questions related to portfolios and questions around some of the work to go all straight to Todd Salmons. So I would reach out to Todd, and then Todd will go to his education faculty to find the answer or provide the answer no matter what. But I think they were having an issue where some people were reaching out straight to their graders and were potentially unhappy with maybe something that they had a feeling on. And I think they want to kind of stop that process and make sure that all that communication goes through Todd Salmons.
Awesome.
What's the time frame that they have per level?
It's an interesting question, because technically right now, from start of program to finish, a young associate has 9 years. However, if they don't make acceptable progress, which I believe is it's always a little bit gray, I think, but it's like roughly if they've been sitting on something for a year to 16 to 18 months, they're probably going to get a note from PGA saying, "Hey, JT, you passed Q level, you haven't got level 1 done. You're not going to meet acceptable progress if you don't get this done within this set amount of time." I believe it's about a max would be about a 2-year window. Now, I don't know why an associate would let something sit and let it, and not get something done quickly. But I know that 9 years is the ultimate time frame, and it's approximately about a 2-year kind of deal in between each, into kind of completing those levels. So, it's always been kind of funny to me, to be honest, because I've asked that question before. I'm like, if it's a 9-year window, then why do we have an acceptable progress kind of thing? It's like, what's to say that JT doesn't pass his Q level in 2020, and then he does level 1, 2, and 3 in 28, 29, and 20, right? So I've always asked that question. I've never really gotten a great answer. They just want to see people getting the work done and trying to not stretch to that ultimate 9-year time, which is very rare.
So,
Andrew, go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, sorry. So, is that something that's softened over time? Because I remember when I went through the program, and I was level 1 GPT, but they were pretty strict on that. Well, it was a 2-year window. So once you got past that 2-year window, you were ineligible to play in section events, participate in things until you got caught back up. So is that something that has changed or softened over time or not?
Looks like it actually has. I'm gonna put this in where's the little chat feature on here? I'm gonna put this in here just so I can be 100% transparent on this. So it looks like level 1 must be successfully completed within 3 years of the start of the level 1 start date. Level 2 must be successfully completed within 3 years, and level 3, an election to PGA membership must be successfully completed within 9 years. So that kind of fits with that kind of 9-year window. But I agree with you, Billy. Like when I was in school, I was in school for 4.5 years, and we were required to have all 3 levels done before we graduated. And it was I think we had 2 years to do level 1, and then I had a year to do level 2 and a year to do level 3. So it was kind of quick. But I was glad that I was put on that kind of time frame, because you know how it goes. I mean, you let it sit, and you could easily let 2 years go by and not get something done. So I was glad that we had that kind of time frame. But that's straight off the PGA's website right there about the current deal. So I think I would agree with you, Billy. It looks like with it being 3 years, I think it has softened a little bit of what the requirement time frame actually is to make acceptable progress.
And are they going to Frisco for every level?
All right. Vanessa, see you later.
So the way that it's kind of working, it's actually a pretty good question about how they're with 3.1, because right now we do level 1 stuff virtually, and then we do 2 and 3 where they come to campus. I believe that there's talks about having level 3 be required, definitely at PGA Frisco as they start to kind of get that going. I believe everything right now for an associate is still done virtually. Erica did all of her stuff virtually, but I think the goal is to eventually get the associates, at least for level 3, at Frisco at the end of their education process.
It's level 1 virtual, and then 2 and 3 are
2
in
and 3 both
Frisco.
take place. Yeah, so 2 and 3 we have in-person seminars here. Go ahead, Justin.
So I guess my question is, and again, listening, I graduated in 2013, so I'm kind of on the older side of this. I have 2 assistants that are green in the program. The tournament, if I'm understanding this, I think maybe William asked the same question. Is there any suspension from play? I mean, I know like if you weren't XYZ, you couldn't play in certain tournaments. These, from what I understand, is there no, to stop them from registering and playing in events?
So that's a really good question, Justin. I actually just had a conversation with RB about that down here in Gulf States. I believe it depends on the event and it depends on the section. Because if a young associate is registered as an associate, there are certain events that they can play in. Now there's certain events that are going to be PGA member only, such as the national, like that's going to require them to be a PGA member, I believe. But the individual section actually has the authority to say like yay or nay to certain events.
So as a section by section, is there anything like a guideline that you recommend? Obviously compensation is one motivator. You can definitely drive them that way. But a lot of guys come in there saying, I want to play every day. That's not what the assistant is not what it is.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that when it really comes down to it, the 2 biggest drivers of well, I'd say that maybe 3. My wife played professionally for a little while, and then when she was getting hers done, she circled the Masters last year. She's like, I got to be a PGA member by this Masters so I can go, right? So that was a good enough motivator for her. But certainly, I think that the danger, I think, when it comes to the compensation talk, Justin, this is only my opinion on this, is that so many places are starved for help and they need assistance and they want help. And they're just like, look, I'll pay them whatever. I just need somebody. It's like, man, we got to figure out a way to distinguish between an associate and a professional. And I don't know what that is, $5,000, $10,000, whatever that may be, or it could be lesson pricing. There's a lot of things that come and go along with that, because playing should be part of it. Playing should be like where, look, you get to play in these events. You get to qualify for the national. You get to play in the second championship, whatever that may be. But you're right. I mean, other than compensation, I think it really falls on the individual if they're going to do it or not. I mean, it just, it really does come down to, I can sit here till I'm blue in the face and try to motivate these students every single day with a new tactic, but unless they take ownership of their own education, I can't, it's sort of the lead them to water, can't get them to drink situation there.
Thank you.
If they don't make acceptable progress, then they're not allowed to play in events. We had that happen recently with the guy in level 1 who took too long and went into kind of F status. So he wasn't able to he was actually a professional as an associate. So he wasn't able to do a junior league team. He wasn't able to play in any events.
And the way that I understand it, Marie, do I understand it well enough that there's ample warning that, hey, you're not making progress. It's not like all of a sudden you just get suspended. It's like, heads up, you need to be doing this. Heads up, you need to be doing this. And then
You get
ultimately,
emails, you'll get an email, they'll get emails from the PGA headquarters, but then us as a section, I'll send out so I get an email and the section staff gets an email and we'll reach out to them. The only thing with that is, one thing that we've changed is we reach out to their employer as well, because I find that they don't know. So you've got your head professional or your director of golf that has these assistants that are going through the program. And yes, the assistants maybe not checking their email, and the director of golf, their boss, has no idea that they're falling behind, so they can't help. So it would be great. I don't know who could do this, but to have a communication from PGA go out to them as well. Not just.
I think you just brought a really good point there, Marie, that as much as I think that as golf professionals, we want our associates to move along and do well and get to PGA membership. That's what we all desire. However, there could be a situation of, like you're saying, where it's like, look, the PGA has a 3-year window of acceptable progress, but it's January. I want you in level 2 a year from now. I want you in level 3 2 years from now, and potentially make that part of the employment, right? I mean, that would, now I don't believe it's on the golf professional to do that, but at least setting an expectation and a standard for when things are to be done. Because quite frankly, right now is the time a student or an associate should be doing their work, right? We know when summer hits, it gets really tough and the days get long.
South Florida.
Say that again.
Unless you're in South Florida.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's right. You do the split gig. You're just showing up to everybody's busy season, so you actually don't have any time off. So, but Marie, I think you bring up a good point. As PGA members that have associates underneath us, if we're aware that they're not making the progress, then there has to be a hard conversation about, look, this guy, you got to move this along and get this done. Because I'm like you, Billy. I think that 3 years is a little. That's a little long, and you give people that much time, they'll take it now, so I think you're correct on that.
Hey, Adam, post graduation, whenever everyone goes through the program, let's say they get their PGA membership, are universities offering any type of mentorship post graduation for, let's say, their first year? Just trying to get into the stream and swim along the way.
It's actually a really good question, and it's been coming up a lot lately about those about what's the relationship with a graduate once they've left. We talked about this at the PGA show last year or this year, and I think that for us, it's our alumni networking and things that we're trying to do. I think that I have a good enough relationship with all of the students that have gone through this program in the last 20 years that they know that we can serve as an avenue and a resource for them. Case in point, one of our a kid who graduated in 2015 or 16, he just got his first head pro job, and he reached out to me to help him with the resume prep and all that kind of stuff. So I helped him out along the way, but that took him to reach out to me. Like I'm not sending that note out going, does anybody need any help or anything? But I think that you're right that I keep in contact for the first 6 months. Like we just had about 10 graduate in December. So this first 6 months of here's how you do your PGA application. And then as you start looking at jobs and evaluating jobs, like come talk to me. So then we can kind of figure out and help you with that process. But to be frank, a lot of times, Parker, I go ahead and in a sense take a little bit of a back seat and I point them towards their career consultant, because I want them to start utilizing Kevin and Doug and all these people around the country, because I want them to have a good relationship with the association. They already have had a good one, but I want them to eventually get to the point where they're not quite as reliant on me any longer, and they start to rely on the association that they're now a member of. So that's kind of my goal a lot of times when somebody says, hey, I'm in Georgia and I'm looking at a job in Mississippi, and I'll say, well, I know a little bit about it, but Kevin Walls is going to know everything about it. Here's his contact information, call him. And that's kind of how we try to encourage them to interact with the PGA on some kind of a post-graduation mentoring. And there's always calls that come in about, hey, Adam, should I get a master's degree? Should I go specialized? Should I go certified? And I tell them all, absolutely. Continue to educate, continue to make yourself better. But a lot of times I do leave it up to the student to figure out how much more do you want me or need me to some degree.
you mind detailing how the PAT rules have changed a little bit? I've read up on it a little bit, but I think it'd be worth sharing.
Boy, Parker, that's been a good conversation last couple of years. We were in Frisco last year. That was 60 golf pros who didn't agree. And we were having a pretty good discussion over the PAT. I'll tell you this, Parker, and from the way where I sit, and I think Doug, chime in if you want to hear on this. It seems to me that if you got 1,000 golf pros in the room, you would have the extreme would be we need to recertify every 5 years. Our golf pros can't play golf. They need to do a PAT every, and the other extreme is you don't have to be a good golfer to be a good PGA member. So where are we at right there in the middle, right? That's where we're trying to figure out, because we know that playing should be a component of it, but playing is not quite as important as it once was in terms of, in some people's opinion. And I feel that way. I have sort of gone to that kicking a little bit. I still believe playing at a high level is important and it gives you instant credibility. But at the same time, does it ultimately tie to your competency at the job? I don't necessarily think that's the case. Now, we don't want to lower the standard so much that playing doesn't matter at all. And we also don't want to make it too hard to where it's this big barrier of entry. So it looks like now the PGA of America is allowing a lot of different avenues in order to get a PAT to count. Number one, if it's a college golfer, they can submit scores from college golf. That could get them past the PAT where they don't have to take it. The PAT works now where they're allowing you to take scores from separate PATs over a set amount of time, a couple of year window. And if you shot, if the target score, let's just say, gets calculated to 156, and you shot 78-85 in one PAT, and then you shot 85-73 in another PAT, they'll let you combine those two scores, those two low scores, to then prove that you're confident there. Because I'll be honest, I asked the question, and you ask it to the wrong person, you get a little smoked. I just said, since when does 36 holes mean? Is that not an endurance test? You what's to say that 36 holes is the requirement? Well, the rebuttal is you can have a PAT over 2 separate days. So you can split it up if you'd like, but we all know in the interest of time, it's easier to knock that out in one day. There had been discussions over trimming it to 18 holes, but I believe that kind of died on the vine for right now. For us, we're able to use our PGM tournaments on campus that, as long as I administer them, those count as a PAT. So Ryan and those of you that graduated from the program, essentially a student can attempt the PAT like 4 times a semester now, at least at our institution. So they're allowing old junior tour stuff. If you got a young person, who played in some state golf tournaments and stuff like that. And I think it goes back, Doug, hear me, is it 5 or 8 years? There was a time you go back quite a ways on some of these old scores, depending on how relevant those still are. Am I right on that?
I think so. I don't know exactly, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, it's 8 years.
It's 8 years. Okay. I thought it was pretty substantial. So you got to think, if you've got a young person who went to college, got a business degree, comes and works for you, they're 23 years old out of college, they could go back and reference a state high school tournament, a junior golf tournament, submit it to the PGA, and then they can clear them of their playing requirement. So it seems to be that there's a lot of individuals that believe that the playing ability test is a massive massive barrier to entry. I don't really know that for sure. I'd ask the question at one point, like, how many people do we have that are just failing the PAT that are dying to be golf professionals? And I really didn't get that answer, but I think it's an interesting thing that we are making it, in a sense, easier is not the right word, but more reasonable for people to get past that by some of their other performances. Because like I've had students that have done the 75, 85 and fail and done it a few times. And it's just a mental thing. It's like, look, you shot 75. You're a good enough golfer to be a PGA member, in my opinion. So I think the PGA has been good on some of these changes as it relates to the PAT. Thanks for asking that question, Brant. That was a good one. All right. Well, I don't know. What do we have slated here? An hour? Maybe one more question and we can kind of.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more.
Okay.
Interns.
Mm-hmm.
Level 1, level 2, level 3. What have you seen or heard from these guys that come back that have successful internships versus guys that come back and say, man, you should never go to that facility, you're not going to learn anything? What should we be presenting to the interns to make sure that they have an enjoyable time and that they're going to learn? I think every facility could be a little different, but level 1, level 2, level 3, what's kind of the expectation?
Boy, it's a really, really good question, Marie. You know, so first of all, when I have a student come back to campus, we have to go through a post internship evaluation with them. And we have to talk the entire thing, top to bottom. What'd you like? What'd you not like? You know, what do you want to do next and all that stuff. And a lot of times when I hear something negative, I'm certainly taking it with a grain of salt, meaning I'm considering the source there. Sometimes a student, it just doesn't matter. They're never going to be made happy. Like it just doesn't matter. What I see is as successful internships experiences. I think the students crave mentorship and leadership. They all say they want responsibility, but they're not ready for it. And neither are you as a club. Because like if I have a student come back to campus and say, hey, I didn't get to give any lessons. Like, well, you were there for 3 months. Do you really think they're going to allow you to set up a relationship with a member? It's going to be short-lived. Like they're probably not going to, really allow that, but they're going to allow you to teach juniors and do some other stuff. But I have students who always say, like, well, I didn't get to do much. And my next question is, did you ask? Simple question. Did you ask to do more? Right? Because the students that tend to have successful internship experiences, they have a good mentor. They have somebody there that cares about them. I can't really stress that part enough, to be honest, Marie. If a good example of this, and I'd brag on him in Alabama, Matthew Shepard over at Willow Point in Alabama. No offense, Matt, if you're going to hear this, nobody wants to live in Alexander City, Alabama, unless they want to fish and go to Lake Martin. Now, RB may want to go back there because he goes there every year, but nobody really wants to live there. But he gets 4 interns every year from our program because they know in their heart of hearts that Matt cares about them. He wants to teach them things and he wants to mentor them. So the students will go against at Pinehurst, I'm not going to get to have any relationships. I'd rather go have a relationship with somebody. So I think that's to me, that's the end all be all right there. And certainly as you start looking at a level 1 internship, that's an 18-year-old kid, a 19-year-old kid. They're probably going to need to learn outside operations. More than likely, that's what they need to be doing. They're seeing it for the first time. They're there for us. They're there for 3 months. They're not there for long. You start getting in that level 2, you start putting them in the shop a lot more. You start relying on them to understand point of sale, to understand T-sheet, to understand pace of play, all of those things. Maybe you involve them in some of the buying conversations, but you're not going to turn them loose and say, hey, go order hats from Imperial, right? Level 3, you can kind of start getting into that with those individuals and find out the ones that have a good understanding of things. What can you do and what are you capable of doing? Because the level 3s, I mean, they're a couple of months away from membership at that point. So they need to have a base level understanding. But like I tell all the students, and I learned this on one of my internships, my final one, I wasn't getting to do a lot. Okay. I went to Pebble Beach. I kind of knew what I was getting myself into out there. I knew I was out there for an experience, and I was kind of bemoaning the fact that I didn't have a lot of experience. And I asked the first assistant, I said, what can I do to get more? He said, well, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're early and late. You're staying early. You're coming in early and you're staying a little late. You're showing that you kind of crave more. He goes, and then at the end of every shift, walk into the boss's office, say, hey man, you got anything for me to do? I'm here for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I can help you with anything that's on your plate. He said 9 times out of 10, that answer is going to be no. But if you show that initiative that you want more, they're going to start thinking of you in what more can I give this individual? So I always put it on the student or the associate to say, you need to ask for more, because if you can't show up to work on time, why in the world is that pro going to let you dot scorecards for the member guests and create that nightmare, right? They can't give you that responsibility because they can't trust you. So as much as it is on the employer to kind of lead in that situation, I believe it's equally as on the student to show, because I tell them all the time, mentorship is not, I'm coming the whole 100. This is a relationship. This is 50-50. We have to work on this together. So I know what you want, and then you know what I can provide. So that's a really good question, Marie, because I think that I have students that come back from an internship that's been a great one, and they have a negative experience, and I'm like, tell me about it, and I kind of get a little insight. I'm like, well, you could have done things differently to get more things. But a lot of times our young interns feel like they're more prepared than they are, and they're not quite ready for the responsibility that they think they want. And that goes for all of us. When we've been assistants, we were ready to be the head pro, and till you got in the seat, you were like, oh, there's a lot more to this. So we all kind of think that anyway. So hopefully that kind of answered the question there, Marie.
So
Yeah, that's helpful.
I got a question as it relates to that. And I'll save my comments about the change in 3.1 to the specialized track. But so with that being the case, are there plans to adjust the PGM programs to be more specialized in career track? And then as it relates to that, is there going to be additional guidance to the facilities saying, hey, we've got an intern coming in that, is in line with a teaching and coaching track or a golf operations track? This is the type of, or this is kind of what they're looking to get out of their internship, more so than, bringing in somebody or bringing in, all of our interns and having them, essentially follow the same program.
Yeah, Billy, that's a good question. So to your first question, no, like at least for us in Mississippi State, we're probably not going to ever go into a situation where a student has a choice to select, at least during the curriculum and the teaching on campus, that will allow them to kind of start to focus in on one of these career tracks. Now, how we do that though is via the internship. So if a young man or young woman comes to me and says, hey, Adam, I really want to teach on my next internship. Well, it's up to me to kind of do the Rolodex of what internships that they're going to get exposure to teaching. Okay, where is that going to fall? But if they also come in and say, Adam, I also want to go work at TPC Sawgrass, I'm going to say, well, those two things don't align, meaning that internship is going to be heavy, player engagement and, a golf course, a pace of play and merchandising. So like that doesn't fit that. So it's up to me when a student says, I'm interested in this, for me to cater their internship towards that. Now, give you an example of this. Southern Hills has a massive junior golf program that they run in the summertime. So if an intern goes there for a summer fall experience, they're going to spend a lot of that summer teaching and then the rest of that internship in a normal golf operations type role. So I'll tell a student, I know you want to teach, but I think you can teach a lot here and you're still going to do other stuff. But a majority of your time, at least for the first part of the internship, is going to be catered toward teaching. So we kind of use and leverage the internship to be that. And to your point, Billy, I will tell if I were to call you and say, look, I've got somebody who's interested and they really want to teach, but they also want to, they've heard great things about Baton Rouge Country Club. Then you can kind of know, well, look, when we have junior golf stuff, I can plug this intern in or try to plug them in. Where another intern, you may have two and one wants to teach and one doesn't. You may just say, look, you're going to have a little different experience and you're going to have a little different experience. And that would be up to you. Are you required to do that? No. But at least if you had the idea that what a young student wanted upon arrival, maybe you can kind of cater that or at least shed light on that area. Because I had a young man go to Milwaukee Country Club because they had a pretty good tournament program and he thought he was tournament ops all the way. He's like, I want to work for the PGA one day. And he went up there and he experienced junior camps and he completely switched gears when he came back to campus and goes, I don't want to do tournaments anymore. I want to teach, so even then that goes back to JT's point of like, I still think we need to expose them to just about everything, but potentially if we can do a better job of saying, hey, Billy, this intern is really interested here. What kind of additional can you provide in this particular area? And it may be something you can't. Some places that don't do a lot of junior golf may say, we don't really have any teaching opportunities here. This wouldn't be a great internship if that's something they're specifically after. So, all right. Well, I think we reached our time here. Are we? I don't want to go over or have anything.
No. I think we're good, Adam. We appreciate it. I think these conversations have given me good ideas for a few future phone calls. But we appreciate your time and answering our questions, giving us a little bit of an overview. I think you're right. It's our responsibility as golf professionals to make sure these guys that are under us progress and get through. It's ultimately up to us to make sure we have future golf professionals and that the association stays strong. So, we're going to do our best, and we have a few resources now that we can reach out to. If anyone ever has a question, reach out to me and I'll try to find the answer for you. But
Sure.
we appreciate it and we hope you have a good day.
Sure. Yeah. Y'all have a good one. I appreciate everybody kind of questions and everything. If there's anything y'all ever need from me, I hope don't call begging for an intern. I don't have many. That's a tough deal. I'm only here from about, 40 golf courses a week, but anything I can help with, please reach out. And I'd be glad to help.